Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and we've already had some coverage on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, but we wanted to break down the entire showcase from Thursday at the Developer Direct. So I'm here with Hayden. Hi, Hayden. How you doing?
Doing good. Excited to take another look at this and see what we missed on the first watch.
Absolutely. So we are going to just play through the showcase here and talk through some of the things that we're seeing, some of the things we're really excited for as we look at our very first footage of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So without further ado, I think we will get started. And okay, there we go. So we're opening up. Nice shot of the team here.
I love that they always do these on these kind of conferences. It's kind of cheesy, but you know what? It gets me in the right mood to, kind of put a face to these names.
They all have pool
behind
tables.
These games. They really do. I feel like game developers love being like, look, we have a pool table, we have a rooftop lounge, we have a vending machine.
Yeah. Like, we don't ever work. That's why everything gets delayed. Notice that we showed the first three films, but not the last two. So there's no Crystal Skull, no, Dial of Destiny getting any attention whatsoever here from Machine Games. Just pointing that out.
Do you think that's down to the era they're focusing in, or just trying to avoid the controversy of those later films, or both?
I think it's both. I think we're talking about this is the era of indie you're getting. And hey, fans that were split on this, don't worry, we're going to take care of you here.
Right.
Back to that shot with the lead of Machine Games. Like, if you look over his shoulder, you have the Chachapoint Idol from Raiders, and then you also have the Game Award that they won.
Was that for one of the Wolfenstein games, I take it?
I imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you played those, by the way?
I have not. I need to, because
super worth it.
I'm sure, and I'm especially in the mood now that, like, they've just made themselves, like, the Nazi punching studio. That's kind of like that's their genre now, apparently.
There's worse things to be.
Oh, way.
And they are the studio we need in 2024. I'm telling you.
Very true.
All right, so we're jumping into the actual trailer now. Opening, I just made a video, actually, about kind of some breakdowns of the trailer and the footage that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cool things to me was like this scene where he's buried in the sand up to his neck. This was actually one of the comics. It was in issue 15 of the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Virtually the exact same type of thing. So I'm almost wondering if it was like a callback to that.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And it makes you know that this game is in the right hand with this team, which is really exciting that, they know the source material beyond just the films and that there's some passion there. And plus, just a really cool image to open up on.
It is. This had to be Harrison Ford's likeness, right? Like, you had to use it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that they kind of, like, gave that a moment to, like, they waited to reveal that almost, where you see the back of him first and the pan down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm loving this villain here.
He looks like a villain from, like, a Dan Brown novel. One of the Tom Hanks, like, Robert Langdon movies, like Da Vinci Code or...
Yes,
Yeah.
He's very, like, large and imposing, but there's, like, a gentlemanly factor about him, which I kind of like.
Yeah, but he's got all the religious stuff, right? So it's... Yeah. He looks like a religion's hitman, essentially.
Right.
So... I like that we're seeing different ways to use the whip, including with traversal, which is really cool. Because for me, games that have great traversal systems always win me over big.
Same. And I think it's cool that they're using the whip as not just like an item in combat. Like, it's a tool. Like, there's versatility to it. So,
yep. If you'd ever played any of the old Indiana Jones games, the whip was really constrained. Like, he was basically like... It almost had to have special markings around the map. Like, here's a place you can use the whip, and then you do that.
Right.
Whereas this one, it really seems pretty free-flowing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious how much you'll be able to zoom around the map with it. I mean, I think it's going to probably just depend on how the levels are designed, right? Because some of the things we're seeing are just very flat or jungly, or doesn't really seem like there'd be places to use the whip to get around. But, like, this area here that's very...
Like, almost like a dig underground.
Yeah, that has all the scaffolding. There's definitely going to be a lot of ways to move around there.
I'm excited to see how. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I called out the first time we watched this trailer that I was really like shocked to see the Japanese Zero plane in there.
Yep.
Because like that's like the one faction of World War II that like they've never really touched on in the Indiana Jones games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to see like how they play a part and if they are a major antagonist, like if we're fighting against the combined Axis powers and not just the Nazis. So then that'd be a really interesting way to like add even further stakes and weight to this game.
Absolutely. And I'm actually really interested to see how it looks, you know, with that. And I'm intrigued by it too. It's been in like a couple of different books, and this is just how much of an indie nerd I am. But it's in one of the older like 1990s books where he is like held by like Japanese military and then gets away. And he actually in that book ends up at the Sphinx in Egypt, which he ends up at here.
Oh,
so
interesting.
It's possible that we're taking something. And then there's another one called Indiana Jones and the Army of the Dead, which is when they tried to relaunch like an expanded universe after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And it didn't work. They did one book and then stopped. So, but it was a good book. And that one had both Nazis and Japanese soldiers in it. And zombies.
So
it's your type of deal. Like
it's got Nazi zombies in it?
It's because some of them turn into zombies, yes.
That's awesome.
Here's some punching Nazis, which we all came to see.
Absolutely.
What's your take on the first person versus third person?
I was just about to say the first person combat does look fun and interesting to me, and I think it makes sense with this studio and with this and with Bethesda's track record as well. Most of their games are usually in first person, but like, you know, as we're seeing here, you are still getting that third person in traversal, so you do still get to see, you know, that iconic silhouette of the character.
Yep.
But
somebody in our Discord made a really good point, and I stole it for the breakdown video. So, you know, thank you for that. But they were saying like it's a really good way of differentiating this game from Uncharted and Tomb Raider.
Agreed.
And saying that this isn't just a Tomb Raider game with an indie or skin on it, right?
Right.
So I think, you know, having those moments in third person really good. We're all going to want that. Plus, we'll know we're settling into a cinematic or something else, you know, like that at that point.
Right.
Whereas the first, I want to feel like Indiana Jones. I want to, like, you know, have that view. So,
yeah. And I love they're doing like the red line here. Just like, they're
so
hitting
cool.
all the right notes.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like discourse wise, like, I think a lot of people, like you talked about, and the person in our Discord who's, I can't remember their name now, but we'll throw it on screen, give them a shout out, I'm sure. But a lot of people, it sounds like, are kind of disappointed that this game is differentiating itself from Uncharted and Tomb Raider. Like, I think there's a lot of people who expected it to be that. And granted, I did too, but I'm pleasantly surprised that it's different rather than, you know, disappointed that it's not just those games in this universe. And I'm sure like there will be inspiration pulled from those because, you know, they're very similar in genre. But I don't know. I think it would have felt weird to have an Indiana Jones game be derivative of things that were directly inspired by Indiana Jones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, Machine Games has to put their spin on it too. And they have to be them. They have to be them. And if you ever play Wolfenstein game, you know what they are. And this game is going to feel a little bit like that. But you look at these, like, expand on this concept art. Man, this looks so good.
Yeah.
And something else I have to point out here, when you have these like dev interviews where they're like in front of the work area, there's always like the one person working behind them.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know why they do that.
And they're not even fazed by somebody who's just talking into a camera. It's like this happens every day. You know?
Do you think the person behind them is actually doing any work, or are they like planted there to be like, hey, look like you're busy, like look like we're working on the game really hard?
Yeah, they're on Slack right now. They're like, I am totally pretending to work, but I'm just sending you this message. Yeah.
Real.
So
sending
now,
memes
bummer John Williams couldn't be coaxed into the video game world, but
for sure.
The score sounds pretty good though, from what we've heard.
Yeah, it does. I'm okay with that, right? Like, I think the problem is I would have loved to get Harrison or John Williams back, obviously. But I think the thing is, like, the amount of money that they would have had to spend to make that happen, I think would have made the rest of the game suffer. So, like, put the focus into gameplay, you know what I mean? And Troy Baker's performance as Indy, the more I watch the trailer, is growing on me. It was initially jarring for me just because I'm so familiar with his voice because I've just happened to play so many games that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm gonna be I'm excited for the take on the character because the thing is I don't think like we haven't really seen anyone tackle this role in a major way before, you know what I mean, besides Harrison Ford. I mean, we got the Young Indiana Jones TV show, and then obviously, you know, various people have voiced him in the games, but like it seems like the way that they're presenting this, I feel like it's much more of a major event than the other games were back in like the PS2, Xbox era and before.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Like this to me very much is they're presenting it as a marquee AAA system selling game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is I really think this is a Game Pass seller, and they're going to market it as such.
I think it's a console seller, honestly. I mean,
I hope so.
At least for that audience, you know what I mean? For the people who want to play Indiana Jones and love that universe. So I'm curious, like, because I feel like we're in a privileged position where, you know, because what we do here, we own most, if not all, platforms.
Yep.
But I wonder for like the general audience
love that we get
doesn't
the
have
shot,
that.
by the way. I just had to throw that in there. Like,
no, it's classic. But I wonder for the general audience how they feel about the exclusivity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like we already knew it was happening. I would imagine we'll see some of the console wars, you know, the Warriors heading out there. Like if you're a PlayStation fan, you're going to say this game looks terrible or whatever, you know.
Right.
And that'll just happen, and that's fine. I'm pretty numb to all that stuff already.
Yeah.
So, not a big deal. This is the stuff I want to see. When we talk about what the, like, tombs, so to speak, from Tomb Raider look like, you know, and how many optional ones there are where you can go and do some of these things and find other, like, treasures or things like that over the course of the game. Like, I'm all about that. I want to see what that looks like. And they even said, like, there's some that you'll pass in the course of, you know, normal gameplay that if you're not really paying attention, you're totally going to miss.
Right.
So I like stuff like that. And I think a game like Starfield missed things like that.
Agreed.
At times.
And I think there's a good, like, I think it works out in people's favor regardless of how much you want that exploration, if it's optional, right? Because if you want it, if you're hardcore fan and you want to get into the weeds and, you know, because I'm sure, like, obviously you'll get, like, collectibles and probably cosmetic gamified stuff, but, like, there's going to be lore there, right? That you'll discover, maybe callbacks.
Not to step on you here, but as our guy's talking here towards the end, watch that idol to the right of the screen. Because you'll see somebody come and go for it here. I don't remember how close to the end we are. I think we're pretty close.
Yeah. I didn't notice that it got snatched up the first time we watched this, because we did both watch it live together just to gather our thoughts. And that was fun, man. I'm generally a sucker for these game conferences, but
So he left the Game Award behind, which tells you which one is more of a priority to them.
Yeah.
So when I learned how big of an indie fan Todd Howard is, I felt so much better about this.
Right.
And, you know, before I even saw any of this the other day, learning that Todd Howard is that big of a fan of this character and of this franchise, like, they're going to put a lot of love into this. And I think we saw that in, you know, in this actual trailer, right? And in the showcase, you can see and feel, like, the love and care that they have for this character and for this franchise. So
the passion definitely shines through. You can tell they're having fun with it, right? Which I think when devs have fun making the game, I think that comes out in the game itself. And you want that, because Indiana Jones as a franchise, I think, has just a very hopeful, fun, it just has such, like, a a fun air around it. Like, and I don't know. I'm lacking better words to describe it right now, but I think like the reason why so many of us who watched it young still want to revisit the films and stuff like that as we're growing up is because like it just transports you to such like a hopeful, optimistic, and like joyous place. You know what I mean?
It's an everyman who gets thrown into these situations. He's very flawed. He gets hurt all the time, right? But still finds a way through wit, ingenuity, whatever, to come out on top. And he super specializes at punching fascists, which is great. Like totally relevant again, and love it. But yeah, I'm feeling good about this game. I'm a little guarded because let's be honest, the Starfield Direct we saw at Summer Game Fest last year was probably one of the very best game showcases I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're really good at putting on these presentations for sure.
Yep. And then the game, we both liked Starfield, but
quite a bit.
It had its divisiveness, and I think that anybody who felt not as good about the game wasn't necessarily wrong, right? I think for each of us, it just kind of hit exactly what we were looking for at that time. But for other people, it didn't. That's fine. So I hope that this game doesn't have some of those spots of flaws, some of those blind spots in it, that it's just a little bit more polished all the way through. I feel good about mission games though.
I do too. And it looks polished. I mean, I'm surprised that we're getting this game this year, right? Because of how little we had heard about it up until this point. But like in the gameplay, in what we see, like you talked about, like this looks like a game that like this it's on track, right? It's where it needs to be. There's nothing glaring to me that I'm like, oh, this looks rough, or this I think needs some help. Like everything seems to be on track. And I'm really hoping this game lands in that holiday window this year because I'm looking forward to it, and I think it could be big for them.
I think it will. And last thing I want to hit on before we get out of here is so we know that Gina is going to be a character in the game. She's a protagonist alongside of Indy. It's already starting some conversation, we'll call it, about, all of it. So where do you think, like, I feel this isn't going to be like a Halo 5 pull the rug out where you're playing most of the game as Locke and not Master Chief.
Right.
This is an Indiana Jones game, and I think you're going to be playing as Indiana Jones. Now, you might get like a Spider-Man type thing where you're playing like a level or two.
That's what I was going to guess. Yeah, that she like gameplay wise fits in the way that Mary Jane did in the Spider-Man games, which I know a lot of people have issue with in the first game, but I think if you make those gameplay scenarios in a way that that character has agency and feels like they can hold their own, I think that will go over a lot better than if, they're just kind of sneaking around and, if she gets caught, we're resetting checkpoint or whatever. And she seems tough. She seems strong. And for what she said, she has that kind of cocky line about like how she hopes Indy can keep up with her. And he's like, me keep up with you. Like,
right.
So I like that confidence, but it's interesting to me because I feel like we didn't really see much of her in the trailer at all. And I mean, obviously this is our first time seeing this game, so they're more interested in telling us just a general overview. Here's what the game is, like here's our genre, here's our tone, rather than anything particularly concrete with narrative. But I do still have some questions, obviously, after seeing this. I'm interested to see how open the levels will be. You know what I mean? Like if we're getting very linear, or if we're getting maybe some of those later Uncharted 4 style sections where you they present you in like a map and give you a vehicle to drive around and explore, and you have to do all the objectives, obviously, but then there's side stuff, you can do stuff in a different order. And I'm curious about length too. So Tyler, what do you think, like how much content, like hours of gameplay do you think will be in this, and where do you want that number to fall? Do you have a specific number in mind, or?
So the first number that popped into my head when you asked that question is 15 hours.
Yeah.
And I feel if it's about there, that's about right.
I agree.
This shouldn't be a 30-hour game.
Agreed.
So now if it goes up to 20 to 22, if you do all the side stuff, cool. I'm good with that.
For sure.
But like a core story, 12 to 15 hours, I'm on board. I'm good.
I mean, I'm generally prefer a game to be shorter but have replay value than to be like a massive, open, expansive thing. And I think this will definitely lean more towards the former, right? It seems pretty focused. But the thing that's exciting too is because it's a video game, because it's a longer form narrative, like I feel like we're gonna have a lot more time for these characters and story to breathe and to spend more time in environments than you get to in a film, obviously.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I'm excited to see how this. We both said I'm excited.
We're both excited.
We are both excited.
Cool. Well, let's wrap up
they
here.
Did their job.
So last thing, are they going to keep their word? Is this game coming out in 2024?
So I think they have full intention of that being the case, but game development is a very difficult thing, right? Because I think we talked off air that I think you want this to be right in that holiday window. So I think they're really gonna fight for it, and even if that means you gotta go like late November, early December, that's fine, right? Because I honestly I would like this I want this to release in a time in the year where it has its own slot to kind of shine, right? I don't want it to be overshadowed by another major AAA release or just have to compete with headlines and stuff. I mean, I don't think it'll happen, but I would love if this launched in that window kind of that Starfield did last year, that like late August, early September.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because that's where
I don't either.
Avowed is going to be, right?
Right.
We think.
I think if they were targeting that area, they would have told us that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but I think that'll be the big announcement from this at Summer Game Fest. When we get that, and we'll go from there. I think it is coming out this year. Maybe that's just me wishful thinking, but I think too you need to get this game into the hands of people who want to play it before like we get too far removed from having the franchise front of mind for people.
Right.
And we're already going to be more than a year from the last movie, which is the last movie.
Yeah.
We're not in between movies or anything right now. So you want to get this game in people's hands and get them excited about it. So, all right. Let us know what you think in the comments. We're excited to hear what your thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle are. I almost said Dial of Destiny. I don't want to necessarily hear your thoughts on Dial of Destiny in these comments. We have other videos where you can share those. Excited to hear them.
True that.
So check out our other Indiana Jones content and make sure you subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. We have a ton of content about Indiana Jones, video games, entertainment. All of it is right here at Strangely Awesome Games. So until next time, have a great day, everybody.
Take care, everybody.